this UFC card that's going to take place on the White House lawn. How do you decide the headliner?
John Jones has made it clear I want to do this, and he sent me a text apologizing and all that stuff, but I need people that I can seriously rely on for this one.
John Jones shocked everyone when he pleaded publicly with Dana White to let him fight again, saying he's training hard, feels amazing, and would be honored to represent the United States at the historic UFC White House event.
Can't wait to see you compete in the White House. Can't wait to see it.
I know. I really hope it happens. Dana, bro, please, bro. Please, I'm training. I feel great. I'm healthy. And I'd be so honored to represent our country and do what I do best.
The former heavyweight champion, who had been sitting on the sidelines after retiring earlier this year, appeared fired up and emotional as he expressed his wish to come back. He was at Dirty Boxing 4 to support his teammate Gable Steveson, who delivered a stunning 13-second knockout. But while Steveson was celebrating, all eyes turned to Jones, who suddenly made headlines again with his unexpected call to action. The problem is, Dana White doesn't seem to believe a word of it. The UFC president has been clear for months that the chances of John Jones fighting again, especially at the White House, are almost zero. He even described the odds as 1,000,000,000 to 1. His frustration with Jones runs deep, and it all goes back to the heavyweight mess earlier in the year when Jones backed out of a $30 million deal to fight Tom Aspinall. That moment, in White's eyes, broke the final thread of trust between him and the man often called the greatest fighter in UFC history.
What do you think John would do in the next couple of months that would make me trust putting him on the White House card?
I would not trust him, but I would like to see him fight Aspinall on that card.
If I had to make odds, it's 1,000,000,000 to 1 that I put John Jones on the White House card.
White has never denied Jones's greatness. In fact, he still calls him the best fighter to ever step into an octagon. But greatness, in White's mind, isn't just about fighting skills, it's about reliability. And that's where Jones has fallen short time and time again. White has said that when it comes to fighters he can count on, people like Conor McGregor still show up when it matters most. He sees McGregor as someone who's unpredictable publicly, but dependable privately, which is something he doesn't feel about Jones anymore. Even with all that tension, there's still a small window of hope. White doesn't plan to finalize the White House card until February, which means Jones has a few months left to prove he's serious. But unless he shows real commitment, not just words, he's unlikely to be included in what's shaping up to be the biggest event in UFC history.
So they've announced this White House UFC fight. Can we expect to see you on the card?
I can't promise anyone anything, but I have a very strong feeling that I'll be on that card. It's going to be historic.
But who would you take on? Who would be your dream opponent?
I would want to take on whoever's holding the belt at the end of the year.
Any possible names you think?
Well, I mean, as of right now, the champion is Tom Aspinall, but we'll see who's the champion at the end of the year. It'd be only fitting to have an American guy fight for the championship that night, and I'd be willing to put it all on the line.
Nice.
Not everyone believes Jones is truly ready to fight again. Chael Sonnen, one of Jones's loudest critics, has questioned his sincerity and even his desire to compete. Sonnen, who's never been shy about giving blunt opinions, said he thinks Jones has lost the mentality that real fighters have, the urge to actually get in there and prove something. To him, Jones sounds like someone who loves to talk about fighting more than he loves to fight. Sonnen pointed out that Jones's behavior since retiring hasn't matched that of someone itching for a comeback. When Jones walked away in mid-2025, it wasn't because of injury or exhaustion. It was because he refused to face Tom Aspinall. He had spent years stalling the heavyweight division, demanding only one opponent, Stipe Miocic. When that plan fell apart and the UFC stopped playing along, he retired instead of facing the British knockout artist who had been calling for him. Sonnen believes that pattern of avoidance is exactly why White doesn't trust him now.
And if he goes to heavyweight, he fights John Jones, this potentially could be the greatest heavyweight fight of all time. In terms of build, I don't know that we've ever seen one that would be as important as John Jones versus Alex Pereira.
Would you agree with me, though, that if you're putting elements of the fight together and one of the conditions is you wait, you fight absolutely nobody, you wait until almost July of next year, do you agree the way that you know Alex on a personal level, he's not going to go for that?
No, Pereira's not going to do it. He's going to fight before. But that's the thing, though, right? Pereira's got to fight either February or March, and then because he'll want to fight again if he's supposed to fight him in June. The issue is Pereira has a broken foot. But because he has a broken foot, that may be why Jones is saying, let's just do it at the White House. We'll both take some time. You heal, I'll get back ready to go, and then we can do it on the White House lawn, which would be tremendous. It'd be an amazing fight. And Jones would probably be a pretty big favorite in that fight against Alex Pereira.
According to Sonnen, Jones's dream of fighting Alex Pereira at the White House might sound great on paper, but it's just talk until he steps back into the octagon. If Jones truly wanted to regain Dana White's trust, he could easily do it by accepting a fight before the big event. Maybe even in early 2026. That would prove he's serious and put him right back in the mix. Until then, Sonnen sees his words as empty noise.
Jon Jones changes the avatar on his Twitter page. Jon has now changed the duck to a duck with an eye patch. That's excellent work. But then Jon comes out and Jon wants to fight Alex Pereira at the White House. It's next year. So when Jon tries to bring Alex Pereira into this and then make it for the White House, that's the only part that's amiss. Pereira wants to fight Jones. In fact, it's Pereira's idea. But if Pereira finds out he's going to fight Jones and it's his next fight and it's not till 3 seasons away, July of 2026, Pereira's not going to want to fight Jones anymore. The only guy that doesn't want to fight, that is a fighter, is Jon. He's on that journey by himself.
Interestingly, Sonnen himself is convinced that a Jones versus Pereira fight will happen, just not for the reasons Jones thinks. During an interview on the Ariel Helwani show, Sonnen said the fight is practically inevitable in 2026 because both men seem intrigued by it. But he couldn't resist taking another jab at Jones, mocking him for spending years on the sidelines drinking protein shakes instead of fighting. He argued that Jones has been indecisive for too long, and that Pereira, at 38, doesn't have time to sit around waiting for him. If Pereira really wants to move up to heavyweight, Sonnen said the UFC needs to make a decision soon, either let Pereira chase Jones or clear out the light heavyweight division and move on. Because right now, the uncertainty around both fighters is holding things up.
He keeps on talking about the White House. Jon doesn't understand. Fighters want to fight. Jon is the only fighter that doesn't want to fight. Jon is the only fighter that's okay taking 3 years off to drink some protein shakes, sitting out on a suspension. Now he's sitting out by choice completely, removed himself from the sport, jumped back in the pool, can't decide what he wants to do. I'm just saying, if Jon thinks he's going to find a dance partner in Pereira, and one of the contingencies is that Pereira sits and does nothing while being 38 years old, that Pereira's going to sit and do nothing for a year, it's not going to solve the problem. And it's also not going to solve Dana's problem with Jon and the White House, which is show me you're earnest. Jon could get this fight with Pereira. He should be calling it out for February. He should be looking at a date of March and then turn around and do something else at the White House.
While Sonnen and White both seem skeptical of Jones's seriousness, others are looking at the potential matchup from a completely different angle. Joe Rogan, who has long admired both fighters, believes a Jones versus Pereira showdown would be the biggest spectacle the sport has ever seen. On his podcast, Rogan described the idea as the biggest fight in human history, not just for the UFC, but for combat sports as a whole. Rogan argued that even if the fight isn't for a title, it deserves its own unique branding. He suggested reviving the BMF concept, the bad motherfucker title that Nate Diaz made famous, and giving it a heavyweight twist. In his view, a symbolic belt like that would perfectly fit the tone of a White House card. He even imagined it as a catchweight bout at 225 pounds, somewhere between Pereira's current division and Jones's heavyweight comfort zone. Rogan's excitement makes sense. Pereira has become one of the most devastating knockout artists in the sport, reclaiming his light heavyweight crown with a brutal first-round finish over Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 320. Even though Pereira didn't call out Jones that night due to the recent death of Jones's brother, he later made it clear that Jones is the man he wants next.
Jon Jones Alex Pereira fight would probably be the biggest fight in human history.
I mean, that
in
at
MMA,
the White House?
In MMA, but as a matchup, you got the greatest of all time in Jon Jones, and arguably the most destructive striker that's ever competed.
Yeah.
No one's like that guy.
That
Peloton?
That Ankalaev fight.
He was like, you.
Charles Oliveira, another Brazilian superstar, also weighed in on the potential matchup. While Oliveira said he would cheer for Pereira, he admitted that a fight against Jones would make him nervous. He's followed Jones's career since his own rise through the ranks and has deep respect for what Jones has accomplished. Oliveira knows that if Pereira lands clean, anyone can go out cold, but he also recognizes that Jones's experience, fight IQ, and wrestling could make him a nightmare opponent for his countryman. That exact sentiment was echoed by another veteran, Matt Brown, who believes that stylistically, Pereira couldn't have a tougher challenge. Brown sees Jones as a terrible matchup for him, not just because of size, but because of skill. He said Jones's wrestling is on a completely different level, and that even if Jones had been partying for a year, he'd still be able to take Pereira down and dominate him. Brown doesn't deny that the spectacle of Pereira versus Jones would be massive. It would attract casual fans, break viewership records, and create the kind of global hype that only a few UFC fights have ever reached. But when it comes to pure competition, he thinks Jones versus Tom Aspinall would be far more interesting. Aspinall, in Brown's eyes, is a legitimate threat, one of the few heavyweights who could actually hand Jones a real loss. Brown thinks that if Jones really wants to cement his legacy, he should face Aspinall, not Pereira. A win over the current heavyweight champion would mean far more than beating a smaller striker moving up in weight.
A competitive fight, or do we just want Jon Jones back for a big fight? Because those are two different things.
That's exactly my point, right? I want the competitive fight. I think hardcore fans, but that goes exactly right into what I was saying, right? Do we want entertainment? Because what Alex and Jon is going to do is have a ridiculous build-up, right? Like, where everybody's going to be pumped. There's going to be people betting on Alex. There's going to be people, just like Conor going and fighting Floyd, right? There's going to be people like, oh yeah, Conor's got a chance. I think Alex has a better chance than Conor did against Floyd, by the way. But you get my point, right? Like, the matchup is literally the nightmare matchup for Alex Pereira. Like Jon is as big, probably bigger. I think probably a little bit bigger than Alex Pereira. A heavyweight, certainly bigger. A million times better wrestler. Like, there's no possible way in hell that Alex, his wrestling is to Jon Jones's level at this point. Even if Jon Jones is out doing cocaine for the last year and then just shows up.
But Brown also understands the entertainment side of the sport. He knows that Dana White might lean toward Pereira versus Jones simply because it's a spectacle, the kind of crossover event that grabs global headlines. Still, he warns that it's a dangerous gamble. The UFC can't afford another scenario where Jones pulls out at the last minute or gets into trouble. From a business standpoint, Brown argued that if the UFC takes the risk on Tom Aspinall instead, they win either way. If Aspinall loses, nothing really changes. The heavyweight division has been stagnant for a while anyway, but if he wins, it would completely rejuvenate the weight class and crown a new superstar in the process. Brown believes Jones is unpredictable enough to complicate everything. He can imagine Jones telling the UFC that he'll only fight Pereira and threatening to sit out otherwise. That kind of power play has been Jones's trademark for years, and Brown suspects it could happen again, especially now that Jones wants to be part of a history-making card at the White House.
Which I think we talked about a little bit about the White House card, period. Is this going to be make the biggest fights you can, or, make relevant fights? And if you're making the biggest fight you can, you go with Alex Pereira, Jon Jones, 100%, especially if you're Dana and you trust that Jon Jones is going to make it there on time, or, not go to jail in the meantime or anything. Right. And, but I think it's a no-brainer in terms of like the biggest fight that you could potentially make. I still think he should fight Tom Aspinall, though. I don't know which is really a bigger fight. You got to think, like, Alex. I know he's a bigger star, but Jon Jones is big enough to carry, whatever fight that he comes back to, and if it's Tom Aspinall, he's fighting for the heavyweight title now. And that makes it as big of a fight as if he's fighting Alex Pereira just to be fighting Alex Pereira, I think.
The White House event itself has already generated huge buzz. President Donald Trump confirmed that it will happen in June 2026 in Washington, D.C. The idea of hosting a UFC card has sparked both excitement and controversy, but it's undeniably one of the biggest moments in the sport's history. However, not everyone is thrilled about Jones or Conor McGregor being part of it. Demetrius Johnson, one of the most respected and disciplined champions in MMA history, made it clear he doesn't think either man deserves a place at the White House event. Johnson said that fighters who are active and working hard right now should be prioritized instead of stars who pick and choose when they want to fight. Johnson acknowledged Jones's legacy, but argued that legacy shouldn't guarantee privileges. He wants to see fighters who are consistently putting in the work, not those who have been sitting on the sidelines waiting for big paydays, not just the most famous names from years past.
And, in the press conference, he kind of alluded to like, hey, I wanted to ask to fight fight John Jones at the White House. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not excited. You know, I'm more excited for Tom Aspinall and Cyril Gahn to fight John Jones, to fight Alex Pereira. Only reason why is because these guys are fighting. They've been active, right? Like, yeah. I love John Jones. You know, I see John Jones. He's a legend of the sport. He's a GOAT. He did come out of retirement because he wants that opportunity to fight at the White House. But I view John Jones as one of the legends. It's like seeing Vanderlei Silva fight. It's like I'm tired of seeing fucking guys still fighting. Like, but maybe it's they need to feed that itch. I don't know what it is, but for me, I really see Alex Pereira fight, either go to heavyweight. If him and John Jones' path cross, all Gucci. But I feel like this might just be just me as a person. I feel like I just want to see guys fight, guys who are fighting. John Jones, the last time he's fought is against Steven Miocic. In my eyes, he's still retired, right? Even though he's in athletic testing pool, he's had a tragic, you know, something happen in his life. I'd rather just see Alex fight, you know, Cyril Gahn and Tom Aspinall. I'm tired of giving these guys, you know, opportunities. Oh, since you're this, you get this opportunity. But for me, it's like, I really just see, I mean, if it happens, awesome, it happens. But for me, I'm not fucking, you know, sitting around waiting for it to be announced like I'm waiting for the next Demon Slayer movie to hit the fucking theaters.
All these perspectives paint a complicated picture of John Jones's future. On one hand, he's the most accomplished fighter in UFC history, a man who has beaten every major opponent he's ever faced. On the other, he's unpredictable, controversial, and often untrustworthy in the eyes of the people who run the sport. Right now, the ball is in Jones's court. If he's serious about fighting again, all he needs to do is prove it. Take a fight before the White House event. Show up, stay out of trouble, and win. If he does that, the UFC and Dana White would have no reason to keep him off the biggest stage in history. But if he keeps relying on social media pleas and public apologies instead of actual action, he'll stay exactly where he is, on the outside looking in while other fighters seize the spotlight. Whether it's Alex Pereira, Tom Aspinall, or someone else entirely, the UFC is moving forward. The question is whether John Jones will finally step forward with it, or stay stuck in the shadow of what he used to be.